Morning or good evening, everyone.
Hello, hello. What's up, dude? I know we just chatted on the test server.
Yeah,
How are
yeah,
things?
it's going great, going great. Yeah, I'm very very excited for this workshop. I've been recording episodes and editing episodes. I just had a chat with Jonah last night, and he gave me just like an absolute masterclass on like really efficient editing, and like he gave me just all these great like procedural tips on ways of stacking your layers and really being really quick with editing, because traditionally I'm definitely not an editor, but
Yeah.
I'm always editing I'm editing out of necessity, right?
Mm,
But with doing this workshop, it's like I don't think I've ever edited anything this long before. Like, it's
yeah.
like 10 we're doing like 10 weeks of tutorials, and I'm like I am determined to edit it all myself. I'm like,
Yes.
I know what I said, I know the things that need to be trimmed out, of the things that need to be added. So I'm excited to dive into this with you all.
That's all. Actually, I was talking to Jonah as well, which is so funny. And he said if we ever need an editing workshop, that he can teach
Oh dude,
editing.
he would be so good. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
for those of you that don't know, we're talking about Jonah. If you guys follow Corridor Digital, he's one of the editors there and one of
mhm.
the kind of behind the scenes cameramen. And he's a friend of ours, friend of DoubleJump, and he's like just an outstanding editor and like super great at like distilling concepts and walking through things. And I do think that if you had an editing workshop, he'd be really great for
Yeah,
teaching that.
because I want to learn from
I've learned
him.
so much
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
yeah, oh yeah, even just dude, like we talked I think for like 45 minutes yesterday, and
Mm.
I feel like I learned like 2 times as much stuff as I knew before before
Yeah.
speaking to him.
Is he still
Yeah.
in Canada? No, he's back, right?
No, he's like here all the time. He lives in LA, but he's like always seems to be down here doing something.
Hmm.
Um, and yeah, so he's been here a few times. I was just doing a show with him and Fenner, who's also going to be teaching a workshop
Hmm.
for Nuke.
Yep.
And I was just doing a short with them. It's basically a Halo fan film, so set in the Halo universe.
Cold storage.
And I had the Halo Cold Storage. Check it out on if you guys are on YouTube, like pull it up and just maybe watch it later. There's a trailer out. But yeah, so we were just there like 2 weeks ago, at Beyond Capture, which is the same studio that I shot my short film Firmware at. And so those two guys are directing it, and then I had the opportunity just to be acting that day,
Hmm.
which usually I'm like having to think of all this stuff and have all this, all the creative ideas and all the technical stuff in my head, but being able to just act and just be like in the motion capture suit running around. They had like we brought in a movement specialist, and he
Hmm.
gave us like a workshop on how to be zombies, which was like
Movement
the coolest
specialist.
thing ever.
That's
Dude, yeah, like
yeah.
his title is like he comes from a dance background, but he's like very much like I would say like a coach, like a movement coach.
Hmm.
And so he gave us this like boot camp of like this like the flood zombies from Halo, and we like all had to learn how to move like them. It was very very fun. Yeah, super cool.
Yeah. It was so funny because I think I was talking to you and you said that Jonah is editing Jordan's workshop
Yes. Yeah.
at your studio, and I was like, my God, like
Yes.
how are we so lucky to have you guys teach with us? And like by some coincidence, everybody's kind of connected and you guys know each other. I was like, that's like
Yeah,
a
it's funny.
inception moment that happened.
Oh,
Yeah.
totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, like Fenner and I both work across from each other. We're both gonna be teaching workshops for
Yeah.
Double Jump. And then Jonah is sitting next to Fenner editing Jordan's workshop for Houdini. Yeah, it's like 5 of us all in a room. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah, I think Jordan is gonna have the best edited workshop in the history of workshops, just because.
Oh, yeah, from
Yeah.
from what I've seen, I'm like, dang, that is tight. That is a tightly edited workshop.
Yeah.
Um,
Which is a bit
yeah,
scary because then
very cool.
we are gonna have to step up our
You're
game.
set. Yeah,
Yeah.
you set this precedent, right? You set
Yeah.
the status quo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah,
But
it's
all the
gonna.
more reason to have an editing workshop, right?
Yeah, editing work 100%. We need an editing workshop. uh Yeah, just I think just in general, like, because editing is such a huge part, even like when people are doing their show reels, you know, the way you edit it
Yeah.
and what you show and when you show it is very important. So I was
Yeah.
yeah,
And then,
editing. Yeah.
yeah, and I think there's so many gaps in editing because I think that anyone can convince themselves that they can edit just because they can put stuff in a timeline.
Mm.
But then once you like, if you talk to like an editor and you really like dive into like, how to trim, like when to trim, when to cut, like um you kind of find your like these blind spots that you're like, man, I didn't realize how much I am like letting something like be redundant, like repeating, a repeating phrase or a repeating idea.
Mm.
And a good editor will teach you how to like really trim that stuff down and really be precise and like super concise. And then
Mm.
I feel like after that, then you can never go back. You see all bad, you see bad editing and you notice it a lot more.
100%. Yeah. Oh, wait.
Talking about,
I have a phone call. Oh, guys. It's Steven Spielberg.
wait,
Wait.
Spielberg?
It's
Is that spelled right? Do you,
Yes. Wait. Yeah? No, yeah, Steven. You don't have to yell. It's fine.
guys,
Okay,
can you believe
I'll
this?
tell them. Okay. I'm on a webinar. Wait. Freaking
Oh
Steven,
man,
man.
why is he always calling you?
Always calling me in the
That
middle of
guy.
webinars. But
Why? It's so disrespectful.
so Steven
It's not
told
very
me.
not very considerate of our time.
Yeah, but he actually gave he told me that everybody we have to give a 15% discount for the filmmaking workshop. He was like, you have to do it because this is, it's all about filmmaking. He was like, Calvin is
Nice.
the next great filmmaker.
He
And
said that about me?
he said that, and he said everybody gets 15% off, but only for 2 days. So
Oh,
the code is going to be available for 2 days to people who are on this webinar right now.
Steve 15. The
Steve,
promo code is
Steve
Steve
15.
15.
Yes,
What a guy. What a charitable
I
guy,
know,
hey?
right?
Just dropping in here, giving us a discount.
Giving people
Wow.
discounts. I love him. He's great. You know. Anyway, so yeah,
He's a friend of the show. He's a friend of the show. I think he's going to be teaching a workshop too
oh
pretty
yeah,
soon.
yeah. He did. I think he did something for masterclass, but that's not a real workshop. They
No.
they only
They don't
give
even
like
double jump. They just
no
single jump.
single job.
Single jump, bro.
But yeah, I think like masterclass usually does like high level stuff, and it's just like some ideas but they
Hmm.
don't go into the deep practical lessons
Yeah, it's
like
more
what we're
conceptual,
doing.
right?
More conceptual, yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, they never dub.
Yeah, they're not
Dude,
and they're not tutorials, right? They're not like teaching you here's how to do the thing. It's more like I'm going
yeah,
to talk to you about
yeah.
how like concepts that helped me to do the thing.
Some ideas how to get rich. Yeah, just be consistent and show up every day. And you're like, oh, great, thanks.
Right.
Good advice.
Right. Good advice.
Yeah. Anyway,
Yeah.
so yeah, 15% off for people who are on the call. But I think,
Amazing.
yeah, Calvin, I think
Thank you, Stephen.
we well, I think you have a few things you can show us, and then we can just,
Yeah, sure.
yeah,
Can
this
I
is more
can
of
I
a
just first ask?
conversation. Yeah.
Yeah, I would love just if anyone's on the chat, just like drop in the chat like what brought you here? What are you excited about?
Mm.
What interested you the most about this workshop? I'd love to hear that. And while you're doing that, I'll talk a little bit about myself. So my name is Calvin Romeyn, and I've been in visual effects for just over 10 years. Before that, I was in IT, learned a lot about troubleshooting, and I would say my main skill of like just being able to quickly pick up technical concepts really kind of came from like my IT background. But I was always more creative, and I always loved as a kid. I just loved telling stories, and I loved I'm going to close the chat for a minute because it's distracting, but I will open it in a second.
Yeah.
After, um, like reading all the things. I've just always loved telling stories, and I've always loved making videos. Like I
Mm.
would make little Lego videos with my little Lego characters when I was a kid, and then my
Mm.
brother and I would do like lightsaber battles. I remember my very first VFX shot was like I made my brother. I gave him like a broomstick, and I was like,
Mm.
Max, you got to run around and just pretend it's a lightsaber. And then I rotoscoped by hand, and so that was like my very first visual effects shot. And And then I just was always doing like little film festivals, and my friends and I would make videos of like airsoft battles and all this kind of stuff. And then kind of later on, I kind of discovered this massive industry here in Vancouver, where I live, Vancouver, Canada, on the west coast of North America. And there's this huge industry here, and so I ended up going to school for a year. And after the year of schooling, I had a demo reel, and I went to started working at Image Engine. I worked there a little while as like a junior like artist, doing like roto and paint, and then I eventually moved into compositing. And then I was at ILM for almost 6 years as like a mid-level, and then kind of senior, and then ended up supervising a show. And then now I'm running my own studio with a few partners. So we mentioned Fenner, who will be teaching a workshop on DoubleJump this year, I believe, or next year. And then I have 2 other partners as well, and the four of us run a studio together where we are kind of really focused on client relationships and working with clients and being collaborative and being really part of the filmmaking process and the storytelling process. And then besides all my VFX experience, I have continued directing, and I've continued creating short films, primarily short films. And I just released a film, Firmware, which we're going to be looking at a little bit. I'll share my screen here. And yeah, if you haven't checked it out, it's basically kind of been the catalyst for this workshop, which is a short film that I created in Unreal Engine. And basically, I would love to be able to show all of you like how, like what all the steps are, like what were the areas that I ran into issues, and how I solved those issues. And I'd love to have like my vision, my dream for this workshop is to have every single person creating a like 4 to 5 minute short film in the span of the 10 weeks. And to prove that it can be done, I'm going to do it as well. So I'm going to use this short film that I created. I'm going to use this as like an example for like, here's what you can do with the time, and taking the skills that I teach you. You can go on your own. This particular short, this is just one of the scenes, but this particular short took me like 2 years to complete. And that's just 2 years of cool face, by the way. 2 years of that's terrifying, of just consistent effort and consistent work. But the skills that you learn in this workshop, I believe, with certainty, that will equip you that you could do something like this on your own. So I'm going to open the chat for a second. I want to see some of the character storytelling. Yeah. Environmental storytelling. Yeah, I'm a big fan of environmental storytelling. I think that like world building, especially like in video games where you enter a new area and the world is just like fleshed out, and you can, as a player, you can like tell yourself a story just by the particular the types of sign, the types of graffiti, the way that the buildings are arranged, and you can tell so much about a world just from the visuals. So I'm a big fan of that as well. CFX artist willing to switch to virtual production. Learn real artists. Yeah, this is definitely like definitely virtual production for sure. I'm noticing, Urban, is your video frozen, or is that me?
I'm here. Am I moving?
Oh, okay, just your video is just frozen. I'm not sure if mine is as well.
Am I frozen for everybody else? Like every time we have I think we should move away from Discord, because I think we have, okay, I'm good. Okay, so it's just on your side.
Oh, okay, I guess it's just for me. That's good. All right. It looked like you were really unimpressed with what I was saying.
Yeah, that would be. So I'm gonna stay like that for the duration of the
webinar. You're like this to me.
Wait, maybe if I wait, turn it on. Does it work now? Or am I still frozen?
It looks like it's reconnecting. It might just be my Unreal session is taking up too much memory.
I think that's it.
Nature taking over. Yeah, it's so cool. Thinkus, like it's so cool the type of storytelling you can do when you think about layers of environments, and you think about, okay, like let's say there's a building that was built in the 70s and it was used, and then at some point in the 90s people left it, but did they leave in a hurry, or did they leave knowing that they were going to leave? And like those two scenarios are very different, right? Like if they left in a hurry, they're going to leave everything behind. If they kind of like it became a ghost town over time, then they're slowly going to you know, they're going to bring all their belongings with them. And then thinking about, okay, let's like fast forward another couple of years, like how has nature taken over? Is it like natural growth only, or has like there been looters that have gone in and like spray painted over top of things, and people looted, like, so like there's all these kind of layers that you can add to like your environmental storytelling. And I always just find like thinking of like the progression of events can help you always to kind of inform like how you're gonna how you build your environments. So
Yeah.
I'm really excited to talk about that. I can talk about that a little bit in what I did with my short film.
Mm.
um
I like
this
everything you
one,
said. I
Fellowship
think
of
a
the-
good example was in The Last of Us, like environmental
yeah,
storytelling, like how the environment
of course.
changed, and exactly what you were saying, like how you know, if they left in a hurry, or if, or I think they were
Yeah,
using
or if it
all
was
of the.
like planned. Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think The Last of Us was like a masterclass on that, in terms of
Oh yeah,
storytelling. Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah.
Um, so yeah, I guess to talk a little bit about the course, I'm gonna
Mm.
just play this. I'll just have this in the background. So this is just like some behind the scenes stuff from my short film. Um, so we shot this at Beyond Capture in Vancouver. It was 3 days of shooting and then many days of post production.
Mm.
But what I want to teach is I want to teach from the very beginning. So I want to talk about um, coming up with a concept, coming up with a story, um, writing a script. I'm going to provide, like, I'll provide the things that I've come up with as well. I want to give you guys as much resources so that if there's aspects of storytelling that you're less interested in, that you can kind of still use the resources that I can provide. But ultimately, I would love for everyone not to just simply follow the tutorial and recreate the result that I'm going to give you, but actually like creating your own story. And this master class or this workshop is called filmmaking, right? And so it is really about filmmaking. And as filmmakers, like, we don't have to enjoy every aspect, but if you're an indie filmmaker and you're doing this on your own, um, I do encourage you to at least try every aspect of it. And you don't have to be a master screenwriter to write a screenplay about, you know, two people having an argument, you know, and it can be something as simple as that. So we talk about a little bit about like just conflict, and again, I'm not by no means like a screenwriter. I'm not a story expert, but I'm going to talk about it from my perspective and from my experience in learning the craft and getting better at it and still learning, which is like, you know, you have a result, you have something that you want at the end of it, which in my case, in this case, it was like I very much wanted to create like a maybe I'll just show a little bit of like the environments. Like I would definitely was you guys mentioned Last of Us, like I was definitely very inspired
Mm.
by The Last of Us, and so a lot of my environments are like these kind of like post-human kind of worlds. And so I do want to talk about like, yeah, like what was my end result, and my end result was like I had this idea of the story, and then all the steps that kind of working backwards from there, all of the steps that led towards that was like, well, I have to figure this out. I have to figure out a version of this. I don't have to be a master at every aspect of it, but I ultimately have to figure out how to do most of this on my own.
Mm.
So I actually traveled to Riverview Hospital, which is this overgrown hospital. It's like been abandoned for like 30 years or something. And I went there and I did a bunch of photogrammetry and I like captured areas of it, and then I put this in my film. So I just want to talk about all the different things I did, and then I'd really love to um, be active in the community and in the Discord and being able to like hear from you guys and hear what you guys are coming up with, and you know, they bounce ideas off each other. And I think it'd be really cool if DoubleJump, if this became a little community of like filmmakers, and that maybe some of you like love lighting, or maybe some of you love compositing, or you find like, oh man, I just get so much fulfillment out of animation. And then it'd be so cool to create a community where you guys are all working together with myself and others, and we can create great work together, and we can
Yeah.
create, you know, these stories. And so many of the people that I worked on Firmware with were just people like that, who just like I met on a set one day, or I met working on a project, and then we've stayed in contact, and we've both collaborated mutually on each other's things. Like my composer Josie, who does like all the music for all my films. He also is a director, and he always needs VFX. So
Hmm.
I do VFX for him, and he composes for me. So it's this really beautiful symbiotic relationship, and I'd love to create that here.
Yeah, I love that, especially because we really are all about the community. I think like we should even start making competitions, like our own film festival, you know, for Unreal Engine filmmakers. We can have not a competition.
Totally.
Well, like it can
Totally.
be literally a festival for filmmakers, and we can then, you know,
Hmm.
yeah, like something like that. I was even thinking about giving in the future giving a DoubleJump grant, like Epic grants, but
Oh yeah.
DoubleJump grants, so you
Yeah.
actually jumpstart somebody's project,
Jumpstart your project.
yeah, stuff
Yes.
like that. So
Yeah.
in the future,
Yeah.
we'll do it.
That would be
Yeah.
really cool. Let's do
Mm,
it, man. Let's do it.
yes.
Um, Yeah, and then I mean, maybe just to touch quickly on like Unreal Engine, like there's so much like Unreal Engine looks amazing, but there's so much that you can do with compositing and like just
Hmm.
adding. So for the short film, I didn't do any of the fire in Unreal. I did it all in comp. And so I want to show as well, just like what you can you do in comp that's like straightforward, like even if it's just grading things and like adding extra little like spark elements like this. Like what can we do in comp to just improve our renders? Um, and Nuke non-commercial is free to use, so don't worry about that. Talking for a minute, maybe also just about animation. I'm keenly aware that not everyone has access to a mocap studio, and I have a few friends who have motion captures suites, but I know that not everyone does have access to that. And I think the big thing I'd want to say is that I don't want anyone in this workshop to let access to resources be a barrier for you.
Hmm.
So if you're on the fence about this and you're not sure, I would encourage you to still do it. I'm going to be providing like a bunch of generic mocap cycles that I will record. And I will also be showing how to use Mixamo and how to combine animations together so that you can create stuff. So I would just say I don't want people to be like, oh, I don't want to do this course because I don't have mocap, because that's crazy. That would be
Dude,
a crazy requirement to be like, oh, you have to have a mocap studio. Like
but
that's insane.
isn't there I don't know which company does it, but you can just point a camera. You can literally just give it footage and it's going to give
So
you okay
yeah, so
mocap data.
Roku,
Yeah.
yeah, so I've tried a few of those. So I didn't want to mention that because I still have to test it a little bit
Mm,
further. But there was one called Deep Motion that I
mm,
did test, and it works. It works reasonably well for specific actions. Like if you had someone running or you had something jumping, you'd definitely absolutely get like something that's workable. I think where those ones struggle is like really subtle performances. And so like I think it would be a little bit harder for those. But and then I was actually a little disappointed. I looked at Rokoku Vision, which
mm,
is like Rokoku is like Rokoku makes like the inertia based suit,
mm-hmm,
which is great and it works
mm-hmm,
very well. And their Vision one, that you are supposed to be able to take two cameras and do them like 90 degrees, and then
mm-hmm.
so then you kind of get like both angles. And I tried it and I did not get a good result. I looked online, I looked at like tutorials, and I couldn't find like all the tutorials and all the videos I found were people being like, yeah, it's not great. So I was a little disappointed about that. But I think it's just so new, and I think it just needs more time.
Yeah.
But the deep motion one worked
Mm,
well with one camera. Like it actually worked pretty well. So
yeah.
that is also an option
Yeah. I think
for
that
people.
is gonna open up the doors to a lot of filmmakers because then you can
Yeah.
do your own mocap and animation. I think Corridor did a video on it. I don't know which one they used. Maybe it was the Rococo one. And I think they managed to make it work fairly well. Like they were able to get some animation, like good enough.
Yeah. I
So yeah, yeah.
I wonder too, like if you just need like a really sterile, clean, like perfectly calibrated neutral environment, or like if it's the type of clothing you wear.
Yeah.
Um, But yeah,
Yeah.
when I was testing it, it didn't give me results that I would be happy to use.
Mm,
It would have taken a lot of cleanup.
yeah.
However, like I will also be talking about cleanup and like how to fix like popping elbows, and um, how to clean up your motion capture.
Mm,
But I think Mixamo is a great resource. Like there's tons of stuff on there, and then I'm gonna record just a bunch of generic stuff that people can use as well.
sweet.
But I
Yep.
think this course is more about like do the thing, like do the 4-minute short film, like do whatever you have to get something out, at least getting something finished. It doesn't
Hmm.
have to be the best, like it doesn't have to be completely polished, but the primary thing is like learn the skills, because if you push yourself to do a 5-minute short film, you will learn so much in the process that your next film that you choose to do, you'll maybe make a 10-minute one or a 20-minute one. um, you can do something far more ambitious, and you will have all of the problems that you would have encountered along the way. You've done those in the 4-minute version, and you've done those in an environment where like you have people like me who's like able to support you. So really, if you're just thinking of signing up, really take advantage of the time that you have with like this community, that we can all like work on this together and we can all create something great. And then you guys are all off to the races to like make something even better next time.
Yep.
Yeah. Oh, Move AI. Yeah, Move AI. I've seen that one as well. So yeah, I'm actually gonna copy that one right now. Copy and paste that right now. Yeah, I'll provide like a list of links. I'm also going to, so I mentioned earlier is that I'm going to make a short film as well. So I'm going to show you, hey guys, this is possible. I'm not crazy. You can make a short film in 10 weeks. So I am going to do that alongside you guys. But I also want to be sensitive to the fact that some people do like to just be able to follow along a tutorial and get the same or similar result. So I've written a script for my short film. I'm going to provide you the script. So if you want to record the script on your own with your own actors, you can do that. And then for the motion capture, I've recorded just like a generic version of our actress's performance, so that if you wanted to do that, you could still create, like follow along with that. It wouldn't be exactly the same because of actor release things, like we can't release another actor's performance to the world, to the internet. But you could, yeah, so you could create something close enough that I can record. And then also like for the assets, we'll provide a list of like free alternatives that you guys can use, so that for the environment, it won't be the same as what I'm going to use, but you guys can either choose to purchase the one I'm using or use very similar ones. Because I know that not everyone like wants to be creative. They just want to learn the technical skills, and that's totally understandable.
Yep.
Yeah, Shane is saying here that Rococo Vision didn't work well either. Move AI did the best. Okay, that's good to know. Move AI. So I'm gonna definitely test that one out. I didn't try that one. Misha says, I want to build assets. I think this course is definitely not geared towards building assets. So I would encourage you to spend the time on this course. If you're taking it, really spend the time on focusing on the skills that are being taught here, which is mainly like sequencing, like editing. Like we talked about editing briefly, like editing your shots together, lighting your shots, making things look good. Yeah, the environmental storytelling, character, figuring out like character lighting and blocking your shots and stuff like that. That's the focus of this, is filmmaking. It's not definitely not focused on making assets. So if you are going to build an asset, it should be something that is very bespoke. That's like, oh, like there's no asset available for this. Is a very specific thing that I need to build.
Yeah.
Because there's tons of free resources, and the marketplace has like thousands of assets that you can just grab.
Yeah. Well, I'm also
I'm sure there's other courses that you guys have that will teach people how to make assets, and
yeah,
that's
100%.
probably a better
Yeah.
use.
But I'm also talking to Kid Bash, and I'm also talking to Big, Medium, Small to give us potential discounts and work with us, so then that people can grab those assets, right? Because
Yeah.
they're super high quality. I think you can make your
Yeah.
whole world and everything. And I think big, medium, small, they also have characters that you can potentially
Yeah.
rig
So
up
that's
and use.
one of the assets.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the asset that I'm using for the short film that I'm going to be creating alongside you guys is a Tokyo alleyway from Big, Medium, Small, which has like characters and the environment. So yeah, like if you chose to use that one, you could, but otherwise, like I'm going to provide, like I said, a list of alternatives. I'll just quickly scrub through like this scene here. So this is like one of the scenes from my short film. This is a hideout where Zerai, the main character, she's got this little memory firmware device that she's using to bring to life her companion here. And the whole scene, so this is one location, right? And so the way I've broken up the short film was I've done all the editing in Sequencer, in Unreal Sequencer. And each location is its own sequence here. And so I would set up like a different sequence for each map. And then you can see here, I'm just like scrubbing through. And so I just have the camera bouncing around to each location. And then there's like specific things that I'm moving around per shot. So like you can see sometimes like things are moving around, or like I'm moving a light. So I'm going to be going through all of that. You can see here the lighting direction changes, right? And that was just because of like this particular angle. Like I needed the light to be up here to catch this highlight on this monitor. Whereas like when it was over here, I needed it to be like lower. So I'm going to be showing all that kind of stuff, like how to build a sequence and like adding overrides. So you can add like you can add specific overrides here. Like you can see I reduce the intensity of this light so that you can really be like really procedural with like your map building. Like you build your map and you build your level, but then you're also doing like a lot of shot by shot tweaks. And that was like one thing that took me a while to kind of figure out, and how to like add the cameras and how to have them on cut tracks, and then also using the virtual camera. So I used a iPad and recorded a bunch of handheld stuff as well. And so if you have an iOS device, you can do the MetaHuman animator, like the face capture, and then you can also do the virtual camera. And I'm going to be showing how to do both of those things. I know one person mentioned on the chat that they didn't have an iOS device. But I also don't. I don't have any Apple devices, but whenever I have to do this stuff, I just borrow one from a friend. And I think that most of us have at least one person
One
who
person,
would be
yeah.
happy to, yeah, like buy
Rent
someone some pizza. Say, hey, come over for lunch. I'm gonna give you some pizza, and we're gonna shoot this quick thing. I just need to borrow your phone.
Yes.
So really, there's like I think that there's no excuse as far as like access to resources, because we're gonna provide you every option. Urban, do you want to do some questions now?
Sure. I actually have a few questions myself.
Oh,
So,
sure. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
so for the film, did you render it with a ray tracer or just Lumen, or how did you actually render it out then?
Yeah, this is all Lumen. So I mean, when I create a project to turn ray tracing on, there was a few shots where I did where I rendered real ray trace reflections. And that was usually if I had a window that the Lumen reflections weren't good enough, like a very reflective surface. But for the most part, this is all just Lumen. And then I render it straight out of Unreal. I render with crypto mats, which are basically ID mats that you can use in compositing software. So then in Nuke, then I'm doing lots of little things like grading, or I'm like, adding an element in between two characters, that kind of thing. But yeah, for the most part, most of the film is like straight out of Unreal Engine.
Yeah.
Yeah, great question.
Yeah, was there a big difference in quality, Lumen versus ray trace? Because we have this other workshop, which is the automotive
Right.
workshop in Unreal Engine, and the Lumen is great, and in most cases, actually, it's good enough. But I think once you try ray tracing, it really, I mean, honestly, it looks
Yeah.
almost like as a proper offline render.
It's it's very noticeable. Lumen is very strong. It's very performant. But there's absolutely no replacement for a true path tracer, especially like real path tracing. Like I was like, there was times where I would build an asset in Blender and using the Cycles rendering engine, which of course is a path tracer. And I'd have all the shaders set up and be like, oh, it looks great. And then I bring it into Unreal and I'm like, oh man, I've gotten used to like this quality. And it looks so much worse now. Because it's definitely true. Like Unreal Engine looks amazing for sure. But once you compare it to like, oh yeah, that's actually like the density of the shadows, you realize it is really just like a fake and it's like a big fat cheat. But as path tracing in Unreal becomes better and better, I do suspect that we'll see more people using like full ray tracing, and yeah, you'll see, like, I think right now it's just there's too many little things with like metahumans and other materials that just don't work as well, that aren't really supported, that aren't fully supported. So
yeah, I so far I only used Lumen. I never actually used ray tracing. That's why I was asking, like, because I want to try it out and see, what's the difference.
Yeah, I mean, Lumen
quality.
Lumen honestly does a very good job with like the reflections and stuff.
Yeah.
Like compared to like the like Unreal 4, like it's incredible. It's pretty incredible. But yeah, if you turn ray tracing on, it's very funny to go back and forth and be like, oh wow, I can definitely see the difference. The funny thing is that like ray tracing in Unreal Engine is like kind of funny how it's implemented. It's just, I don't know, it just doesn't, there's aspects of it that are like way better, and then there's other things I'm like, man, it looks better in Lumen, and I don't, it's hard to place a finger on what it is all the time, but it's like sometimes it'll be like, oh, the reflections look way better, but the shadows are like way too bright. Like they're not dense enough in ray tracing. Like there's too much GI, and so I don't know. I think there's still lots of like funny cheating math that's happening under the hood.
Yeah.
I think the only real one-to-one is turning on the path tracer. But then of course now you're like, what's the point of using Unreal Engine? Like if I'm gonna be rendering path tracing, I'm gonna be rendering like 500 samples. Why don't I just put this offline and do it in Maya or Blender or something?
So it gets just as slow as doing like offline.
The path tracer does.
Yeah.
The path tracer is like a progressive render that starts really noisy and then slowly cleans up, right?
Okay. But I'm assuming
Whereas the ray tracing is just using it's using like an RTX like ray traced like accelerated.
Okay.
It's not like putting it in Blender like cycles. It's not the same.
Yeah.
But if you use path tracer, it looks incredible in Unreal. But when I was trying it, like things like the metahuman like eye shader was just totally broken. I think there's other issues with potentially cryptomats and other AOVs that just don't work in path tracer. And then of course just the time implication. Like I wanted to be able to render this whole film is 24 minutes. I rendered it all on one machine, and I would never be able to do that in Blender or in Maya or something else. Question from Max: do you recommend this film making WS for beginners? Oh, workshop. Sorry. Okay. So beginners. Yeah. Great question. That's a great question. Max asked if I recommend this course for beginners. I think this is not an intro to Unreal Engine, so I expect, and one of the prerequisites is that you at least know how to open Unreal Engine. You know what a character rig is. You don't have to be an expert at rigging, but I would expect you to know a little bit about the process of like a standard DCC workflow, which is like, characters have textures, roughness, like this is what a roughness map is, like those kind of things, like just the basic kind of expectations that like any kind of junior CG artist. So I do think it's definitely geared to like juniors and mid, but it's not going to go crazy advanced, but it will be there'll be definitely aspects of it that are like highly technical, and I would say it's definitely an intermediate course.
Yeah. When it comes to, so you exported the thing, did you use a lot of color grading to get the filmic look?
Yeah.
Or is this straight from the engine?
So no, it's I had my friend Eric Werlin, who is a freelance colorist. He graded the film, but most of the look I did, like most of like the color, like all the cyan that you see in here and stuff, a lot of that is in the sky shader. And so I always like to try to get as close as I can in the render and then let comp be just like the last little nudge, and not have it being like rebuilding the whole thing. That being said, like all the film effects, a lot of the grading that's like the specific character grading is all done in Nuke. So there's things like where I'm like darkening a foreground character that I want it to be more in shadow. And instead of like trying to fiddle around with like flagging lights and stuff, I would just in comp darken it. And then there's like a heavy film grain pass on top of everything that I created. And then all of the effects, all of the all the sparks, all the explosions, all the fires, all done in Nuke. Just because. Oh yeah, so here's a good example. I'll show you Urban. So everything here is rendered in Lumen, of course, but when you get to I'll show you the shot here. That's a ray trace reflection there. And so for this shot, I just switched it to ray tracing, just so that I could get that reflection. But there was elements of the shot that just didn't work as well. Like I think in the Lumen, this was like darker and like felt more integrated, more in shadow. So there was just like, it was just a constant compromise. And then now you can see that we're back to Lumen again. So it was just kind of a constant compromise on using like Lumen's reflections or ray trace reflections.
Yeah.
But yeah, so lots of comp stuff, but not crazy. Like it's definitely not rebuilding and like recomping. Most of the stuff I did render all in one pass. I didn't render too many layers. I think there was one or two times where I had to separate like a foreground object so that I could do the defocus, because Unreal Engine's defocus is a post process, meaning that it's going to blur pixels that are in the image. But if you need to blur pixels that are behind, like something that's semi-transparent, you need to render it separately. So you can do in Nuke, you can do two separate defocuses.
Yeah. Does Unreal Engine still suffer from depth of field, like jitters, especially with like
that's
alpha transparency?
what I'm Yes, that's what I'm referring to. So you can
Yeah.
see it all over her hair there.
Yeah.
And at a certain point, it's like I had to accept like, okay, this is an Unreal Engine short film. It's gonna have those issues. So
Yes.
like you can see here the fringe where like this, because of semi-transparent and depth values are unaliased and are
Mm-hmm.
binary, meaning if you have a half transparent depth value, it's gonna push that pixel way back in depth. And so then it's gonna get the background defocus instead of the foreground defocus. And so traditionally in Nuke, you'd render, or in like a regular pipeline, you'd render her separate from the background so you could do the defocus. But because Unreal is all a post process, it's all just being applied on top. But I had to accept eventually, like, yeah, this is an Unreal Engine. It has some of those quirks. And unless I'm going to like separate every single character, like I have to just accept it. So I tried to avoid it and tried to like work around it when I could. But yes, it does
Yeah.
definitely suffer with
Yeah,
that.
it's a great storytelling tool, and that's the main point of this, is that you can actually create your own world with your own characters and tell the story.
Hmm.
Imagine shooting this for real. It would cost like
Oh, yeah.
10 million
Oh,
bucks
oh,
at least, yeah, to get
yeah,
done.
absolutely. Yeah. Oh yeah, it's a $10 million short for sure.
A
To get
100%.
just to get all the locations, just the
Yeah.
locations, right? The
Yeah.
environments. Yeah. Misha asks, how did you come about creating a short film and what did you start? Do you start creating a script, storyboards, rough animatic, etc.? Also, how did you get other people on board to help with your visions? Great question. Um, so for me, I just being really visual by nature, I always start with like a very specific visual. And in my head, I had this idea. It was like rattling around my brain for like probably like 7 years. And it was like this little spunky girl and her like giant robot companion. And I just had this picture of them like walking along with these like big like nuclear cooling towers behind. And it's not unique or anything, but it was like, oh, I just wanted to do that. I was like, that'd be cool. Like it'd be cool to have a story with like a robot and her friend. And absolutely not original, but that was it for me. And then I was like, okay, now I need to make a story around this. And I didn't really have anything for a long time. And then eventually, like at one point, I was like, man, I want to learn Unreal Engine. So then I kind of combined the two of like trying to teach myself to learn Unreal and then having the story. And then I always like bouncing ideas off people. I find the best way to ideate quickly is just to have a conversation with people, and you can always tell when your idea is good when other people start adding to your idea. So
Mm.
if I was to say to Urban, like, hey, I have this idea of I want to create a short film about a piano player,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm going to say that because I have a piano behind me,
Yeah.
and Urban's like, oh, nice, that's pretty cool. Then
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, that's probably not a
No,
great
bad
idea.
idea. But if I would say, well, and
But
he can have 3 hands, so he's the best piano player on the planet.
and they'll be like, "Oh,
Whoa.
man," and then that's so cool, and then imagine one scene where he has to, like, battle someone else on a piano, but this guy has 4 hands.
Yeah.
You see how we're both adding ideas on it, even though it's stupid, but, like, that kinda shows you, like, "Oh, this idea is good," like, because someone's contributing to it.
Yeah.
So, for this particular project for Firmware, I just started talking to my brother. We just texted him, and we texted back and forth for, like, 3 days straight, just, like, adding ideas, and it kept getting bigger and bigger, and he kept on adding. He had all these great ideas, and I had great ideas, and at a certain point, we're like, "Oh, this is really cool. We should, like, write a script together." So,
Mm.
what we did is we both wrote a draft of the script in isolation, like, totally in isolation, and then we came together and I had my wife read both drafts with no name. And I asked her to tell me like what aspects did you like of each, and she liked certain things of mine and certain things of my brother. And then I took both scripts and combined them together and created our little script baby. And once we had our little script baby, I started talking to other people and I started talking to actors. And you mentioned, Micha, like how do I get other people on board to help your vision? I think it's just about being energized. I like the term energized, and it's like having that energy to like be excited and be like, "Hey, this is going to be a really cool thing. Do you want to be part of this?" Like for this workshop that I'm doing, of course, I'm creating a short film, 5-minute short film, and I just spoke to my friend Tiana. I was like, "Hey, Tiana," she'd never acted before, and I was like, "Hey, Tiana, I'm writing this part. I got this great idea. I think it's a really good part for you, and I think you could kill it. Do you want to do some acting for me? And I'm going to help you through it. Don't worry, I'm going to help you through it." And she was really excited, and the reason why she was excited is because I was excited about it. And so I went over and we recorded the lines, and she did great, and it was awesome. So I think just having energy and passion like is so contagious. And if you're creating an environment and a space where people are taken care of and they're respected, and you buy them food, people will be happy to help you on your short film.
Yeah. Love that.
Purvis asked, will you teach how to set up a DMP workflow in UE5? So yeah, digital matte painting, DMP, is traditionally a post-process. Generally, DMP is, I mean, there's two ways of it. There's a 2D, kind of 2D DMP, which is more like, here's the layer, and I'm going to put it on a card, and I'm going to run it through the camera. And then there's kind of more the 3D approach, which is like projecting a painting or a series of painting onto cards or onto geometry. With Unreal Engine, because it's so fast at rendering and so powerful, it can handle so much geometry that a lot of times with Unreal Engine, it's just finding the right assets and finding the right environment and building an environment. I will likely touch a little bit on environment. I don't know that I will be showing like a full, like, here's how to create an environment. There's a lot of great assets out there that can get you started. But generally, my experience with the DMP workflow is more like paint overs or adding additional detail. So let's say you have a render of like a background, like let's say it's like a mountainous landscape, and you can render that out of Unreal Engine, and then in Nuke you can do a paint over, or After Effects you can do a paint over and just improve it. Maybe you're adding like other textural detail or other photographic elements to try to elevate the render. And I'll likely show a little bit of that, of like just like how to add like certain aspects of compositing to like improve your renders. But generally, like a DMP workflow is more. That's kind of, I feel like that's more of like a different class than what we're talking about, like a full DMP workflow. Is there a series of videos that we are able to watch whenever we can, or is it? Oh yeah, Urban answered that. Stick your own place, script baby, filmmaking your energy. Yeah, it's great.
I love this scene. This was, I think, one of the most cinematic ones. And just like her face here is, it feels
this one
human.
oddly worked really well.
This one looks
and
good.
I think that's
and
I think that's one thing I do want to talk about, is like I did learn a lot about the metahumans and like where their strengths and weaknesses are. So I'm sure most of you have at least like opened up the metahuman creator, and there's definitely like tells that's like, oh yeah, I can tell that's a metahuman. But there's like things you can do to kind of avoid it, and this was one shot that in particular like worked really well, that just like the lighting. So I'm really passionate about lighting, so I'm definitely gonna be speaking a lot about lighting. Is anyone who's here, I would love to hear, like, does anyone here have, maybe just say like yes or no, you don't have to go into detail, but I would love to hear does anyone here have ideas that have been like rattling around their head, like this idea was for me, that's like, oh, I have this dream project. I'd love to hear, because it would make me so happy if this course could be the catalyst to push you in that direction. Yeah, Robert says too many. I get that, Robert. I always have too many projects. I always have too many ideas in my head. A few stories, a few themed ideas, nice. And I think even like this, I don't think that you necessarily have to like hold yourself to creating a full short film. That's what I'm going to teach in the course. But even if it's just a scene, it's just like this, like just two characters talking, just enough to get you in the door and get the skills. And then, like I said, then you can take that project, or take the next project further. And this wasn't my very first short film. I've created other short films, and it was kind of everything's kind of built upon that. And now that I've, like after kind of having that experience, I felt like I was able to do something more ambitious like this and involve more people. And as you get that traction, and as you get that experience, you can continue building your community and building your network. And the more you do that, the more kind of access you have to like higher resources. And so like now I feel like I have enough contacts in the industry, enough people that I've worked with, enough people that trust me and that I trust them, that it's to do something like this is more achievable. Whereas like for some of you, if you're just starting, you won't have that yet, and that's okay. So just start simply, and start like do the smallest version of your idea that you can do in this workshop.
Yeah, I think that's great. And I think a lot of people wait to get motivated to do something, where it's actually the other way around. You get motivated through action. And once you start producing, that's why I like what you're saying, like just start doing something, even if it's like a small scene, it's gonna start the domino effect, and the ideas are just gonna come just from that, from that moment. So you just have to start.
Yeah, I love the phrase consistent obedience in a similar direction. So just having that that obedience, or whatever you want to call it. I call it like I'm obeying my creative gifts. I'm obeying my drive, right?
Yeah.
And it's just that consistent showing up in a similar direction, that consistent obedience in a similar direction. And that doesn't say that you need to take a certain amount of steps. Just move in that direction. And it's like with, like, I was talking about piano again. It's like practicing piano. Like sometimes I hate practicing piano. I hate practicing, but sometimes all it takes is like just putting your hand on the keyboard and playing one chord, and you're like, oh, okay, what else? And then you start, and then you find yourself practicing, right?
Yeah.
Um, and I always find with learning new skills like this, it's really hard to follow tutorials when you don't have a goal. It's really hard to just be learning. Learning is learning feels good because it, like watching a tutorial feels like you're learning. But it doesn't really retain, and you're not really going to enjoy it, and you're not really going to stick with it if you don't have a final goal. And so that's why I really wanted to make this tutorial with the intention of a final goal, which the final goal is create a short film or a short scene.
Yeah.
So if you guys have that final goal of that idea, I love this person here. They said that love story in mind upon an oil and factory location. I don't know what that means, but oil and factory sounds like a really cool location. Oil factory, that sounds pretty cool. So having, like, if that's your end goal, then work backwards from there. Like, what are the skills I need to learn? What are the things I need to focus on? What are the tutorials I actually need to watch? Because it's really easy to get into the YouTube rabbit hole of just watching tutorials. But I try to, when I'm working on a project, I try to ignore all other learning. I'm not going to learn anything unless it's going to help me accomplish that end goal.
Yep. I also like putting involving other people, because that raises the stakes, and then I have to finish the thing that we started, because
Yeah.
if I'm by myself, I'm like, maybe I'll do it next week, and then you keep postponing it, and then you never finish it. But as soon as you put it out there or involve other people, then you have to finish.
Yes.
That's why I like
Yeah, I think some people like that, like, external factor of, like, almost like punishing yourself. Like, "Hey, man, if I don't finish this, I'm gonna give you $1,000." And then it's like, "Now
yeah.
you better finish it, because 'cause you're gonna punish yourself if you don't." Some people work well with reward, and some people work with, well with punishment.
Yeah.
Someone wrote here, "Shout out to Galactic Battles." That's really funny.
Wait,
Galactic Battles is a short film.
that's the other one you made,
Yeah,
right?
someone just
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, someone wrote here, "Shout out to Galactic Battles." There's a short film I created, like, I don't know, 10 years ago or something,
Was
on
that was
YouTube with,
not in Unreal Engine, right?
it was like no, that was like Maya. It's like Star Wars, Star Trek,
Mm.
Halo, a bunch of stuff. That's funny. I'm just a character, TD. Yeah, Raphael, I'm just a compositor.
Yeah.
Um, and it's just all it is, do you care enough? Like, if you care to learn the skills, then I would love to give them to you. And if you don't, then that's totally fine. Not everyone is interested in filmmaking. Some people just want to go to work and just do lighting or just do compositing. And I'm not happy with that, because, like, I want to be able to tell my own stories on the side.
Mm.
But I understand that not everyone's built that way. Um, we have a question here. Do you think that regular render software like Arnold V-Ray will stop making sense at one point, or do you feel they will start to cohabitate for a while? I think there's still a long time before things like Unreal Engine, the real-time capabilities of Unreal Engine, replace other offline renderers. I think it's more the other way around. I think it's like Unreal Engine has to catch up to what Arnold and V-Ray and other softwares are doing, and I think it's more of a hardware race of GPUs becoming more and more powerful, because you see that they're adding path tracing to Unreal Engine, and that's a step towards Unreal becoming more like Arnold as opposed to the other way around.
Yeah, pros and cons to both workflows, right? I think
Yeah.
even like Unreal Engine, I know a lot of studios started using it because it helps them with the layout and previs. It just helps them visualize things much
Yep.
faster. So you
Yep.
can then show the results to
Yep.
the client, to the director, whatever. And then maybe the final would still be rendered in, Arnold, V-Ray, whatever. But just
Yeah.
to get like the idea across, or like what they're using for, virtual production stuff. A
Hmm.
lot of commercials are using Unreal Engine now as well, and like motion graphic
Yep.
type of projects, because I think hard surface things are actually rendered pretty well in Unreal Engine.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. Absolutely.
Yeah, so
Yeah, car. That's why the automotive workshop is so good.
yeah, it looks great.
Because it just looks so good. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's great.
Yeah.
I see someone here is lying in the direction of my dream. You can definitely lie in the direction of your dream. I always have my best ideas when I'm lying in bed. That's when I get all my ideas.
It's the direction, not the velocity. You know, you just have to be at least be
It's
pointed.
all about the direction.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not the intensity, the
Yeah.
direction.
Yeah. But yeah, cool, man. I know you have to run because you have you told me you have like a few renders that you're finishing up and you're under
Yeah,
pressure.
I unfortunately we're not rendering in Unreal Engine, so I have to actually wait for my renders to finish. I saw one person typing a question. If you have one last question, feel free to drop it in here.
But while
How is Embergen and Houdini Sim different? That's not related to
Houdini
maybe
Sim.
Urban. You can take that one.
Yeah, so like Embergen is really fast and it can produce really good results. It totally depends what your end goal is. I think with Houdini and what I'm going to be teaching in my workshop, which is all about explosions and fire, is showing you how controllable Houdini is and what you can really shape your simulations to your will. And also the quality is kind of uncapped. So you can do almost unlimited voxels and unlimited quality, where I think with Embergen, the quality is still a bit capped, but getting a lot better. So they're actually doing a great job. So that's the difference. But Embergen, just based on the speed, is very useful, and I know a lot of video games started using it. So pros and cons. I think Houdini is just an ultimate tool for everything. So it's very worth to. It's worth learning.
I really had to take Jordan.
Yeah.
I really had to take Jordan Allen's workshop.
Yeah, a lot of people said that that's going to be their first start in Houdini because it just feels like so entertaining, you know.
I learned it in school, and it was so difficult to wrap my head around. But I feel like from what I've seen Jonah editing Jordan's, I'm like, that I feel like would fit in my brain.
Yeah, I need to watch a few, especially the rigging parts. I'm not good at rigging, but I don't like rigging, but I also want to do my own short film, and I was thinking about learning how to animate. You know, so not mocap, but I want to learn how. Yeah, because the thing is, I want to do it has to be. I like anime, so like my animation is gonna be, you know, people jumping and flying, and fighting. You know, like Dragon Ball or whatever.
That's so funny that you said that, like, because I feel the same way with like my next project is that like I did this is all mocap, and then after doing this I was like, I actually really like animation, but I'm not great at it. So I same with you, like I designed like my next project, I designed it around the idea of how can I teach myself to be a better character animator, and forcing myself to learn character animation,
forcing yourself to learn. I love that. That's what I'm trying to do. Exactly.
And then that's the same as what I was talking about earlier. If your end result is I want to be a good character animator, like you don't need to spend time watching videos on how to do a crowd sim in whatever like new software, that new plugin that does whatever. Like you just need to focus on the skill that you want to learn, right?
Yep. I also wanted to plug this. So we're giving away a hat. Stupid focus. We have a DoubleJump hat. We're giving away a DoubleJump shirt. This one.
Sweet.
Focus. There we go. And I think Ava also gave me a newspaper. We have our own newspaper that Ava did. It's very cool. Yeah, it has.
It's actually really cool.
Like it has a lot of pages. You know, it's
that's
like
so cool.
There's Jordan here on the
I saw the link for that. I need to go check that newspaper out. It's very cool.
So maybe I'll actually sign all of these. So I think Ava put a Google form link in the chat. So if you fill out the Google form, give us some feedback, and whoever it's going to be a random pick who gets the swag. So
nice.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I think that's it. I think that's it for this one.
Great. Well, thanks for having me, Urban.
It was amazing.
Pleasure.
It was great. Thanks for presenting. Yeah, I'm actually super excited for the workshop because I also want to start working, like I said, on my short films. And I think the
Nice, man.
I think I'll keyframe animate it myself, but I think the rendering is going to be in Unreal Engine, just because otherwise it's going to take months and years to render.
It's gonna take years to render. Yeah. That's awesome, man. I would love to talk to you more about that.
Yeah,
100%. Hear about your project.
Yeah, maybe I can just I'll just join the workshop and like work with you guys.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, man. We're totally. Even what if you just did like a teaser? Like you take your project and just do like a proof of concept.
Yeah. I'll try.
It'd be pretty fun.
Yeah.
Either way, or whatever you decide, I'd love to read your script at least.
Yes, will do.
Cool, guys. Well, thanks for joining. I am looking forward to getting to know some of you and teaching this workshop and seeing what you guys create.
Yes. All right, cool. That's it. Thanks, Calvin. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
See you next one.